My name is Jade. Female. 12 years old. The village's spirit medium. Villagers within a 10-mile radius, from old to young, respectfully call me Grandma 9. This is because I rank 9th under the King of Hell's palace and the city god, Zhong Kui Kui Ju, Oxhead, Horseface, Horseface, and the black and white impermanents are all my elder brothers. After the Hungry Ghost Festival in the 7th month, a woman sought me out at home. In the scorching summer heat, the woman was completely wrapped up, even wearing a scarf. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. Grandma 9, something strange has grown here. I'm turning into a man. As she spoke, the woman pulled down her skirt, and I was utterly astonished. I am disabled. When I was 3 years old, while worshipping Waitua at the temple, a stone statue unexpectedly fell, breaking both my legs. So, although I'm 12, I've been in a wheelchair for 9 years. Only when I summon a deity to possess me can I briefly experience the joy of standing up. Honestly, to this day, I still don't know how exactly I offended Waitua at the temple. It truly feels like my biological parents' fear when they abandoned me, that I might be some kind of unforgivable demon, reborn from hell, born with an ominous mark. In truth, I also fear that I am indeed a reincarnation of some malevolent, sinful demon, and will later harm those around me. That's why I've always been curious about my origins. When my blind master, old 18, was still alive, I begged him to read my fortune. My master was very dedicated then. He specifically set up an altar and sacrificed to the 3 lives to inquire. The result, as soon as my birth chart was written on a talisman and burned, the altar directly exploded. My master vomited 9 mouthfuls of blood and was bedridden for 49 days before he could get up. Fearing my master would be hurt again, from then on, I never dared mention my origins in front of him. Later, my master passed away, and I inherited his mantle, becoming a renowned spirit medium within a 100-mile radius and an honorary sibling to Zhong Kui Qiu and the black and white impermanence. I asked my second brother, Zhong Kui, about my origins, but he always spoke ambiguously, keeping it a secret. That day, I was pondering my origins in the courtyard, drawing over a dozen talismans, then chatting with a paper doll for a while. After the 7th month, I hadn't had any work for nearly 10 days, boredom creeping in from the idleness. Having nothing to do, I simply opened my textbook, intending to do some math problems. Just as I opened the book to write down a solution, someone suddenly knocked on the door. I wheeled myself to open the door and saw someone resembling a mummy standing outside. The reason I call her a mummy is that in the scorching summer, she wasn't bothered by the heat, wearing a long-sleeved shirt, a long white skirt, and even a scarf. Completely wrapped up, no ventilation, like she was marinating herself. The mummy burst into tears the moment she saw me. Are you Grandma 9? I've become abnormal. Please save me. Many people call others abnormal, but it was the first time I heard someone call themselves abnormal. A little curious, I invited her inside. In the courtyard, the mummy-like woman was a little scared to see the paper doll sitting neatly on the stone bench. I casually put the paper doll into my bag and told her to sit down and talk. Tell me, what kind of abnormality? Did you suddenly get the urge to dismember someone, or awaken some peculiar taste? Honestly, these are psychological issues. You should seek a professional therapist. As for venturing into the underworld, exorcising ghosts, or slaying demons, I'm adept. But guiding others to do good or being a life coach, please excuse me. My knowledge is limited, and I lack the patience for it. Hearing my question, the mummy hesitated for a moment. Then, without another word, began to undress. She removed her hat and veil first, revealing a woman's face. She was a woman in her early 20s, with exquisite features and eyes that held endless charm. I am a 6th grader with mediocre writing skills, and I don't know what words to use to describe her beauty. But I dare to pat my newly developing small chest and say, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever met in my life. So beautiful that even I felt a bit envious. Then the woman took off her scarf, her hands never stopping, directly removing her shirt and underwear. Grandma 9, do you see my breasts? I glanced at them, a bit speechless. Are you complaining they're small? But I don't offer breast augmentation services here. At this point, I was a bit suspicious. The woman in front of me seemed mentally unstable. Could it be that during the last storm, a wall at some mental institution collapsed? The woman continuously shook her head, almost in tears. You don't know. I used to be a D-cup, but starting half a month ago, my breasts suddenly began to shrink, almost changing daily. Now, even an A-cup is hard to maintain. I know what you're thinking. It's not a ruptured implant, because I've never had breast augmentation surgery. The woman shed tears of grievance. More importantly, something strange has grown here. After saying this, she took a breath, her face flushed, and gathered all her courage to pull down her skirt. With just one look, I was stunned, my heart filled with dread. This woman was indeed not exaggerating. She truly had transformed. She possessed clear primary male sexual characteristics, and the size was not small. It looked fully developed. Grandma 9, I'm turning into a man. The woman completely lost her composure, crying almost to the point of fainting. Put your clothes on first. To be honest, it was my first time seeing something like this, and I couldn't help but feel a little awkward, my heart pounding. But my master had said that those in our profession must never show bewilderment in front of outsiders. So my face remained calm, as if I were accustomed to grand spectacles. The woman obediently put her clothes on, her face pathetic. Now I don't dare to leave the house anymore. And walking is very inconvenient. It just swings back and forth. I really don't know what to do. I cleared my throat slightly. Have you considered going to a hospital for artificial removal surgery? The woman shook her head. I have a premonition that if I cut it off, it will grow back. That magical? Like a lizard's tail. What exactly is wrong with you? I heard that in Thailand, there's a type of transgender person. Poor boys who drink estrogen from a young age and then develop female breasts. I didn't say it outright, but my meaning was very clear. The woman adamantly denied it. I'm not Thai. I've been a woman since I was little. I suspect I've been cursed. I didn't pay much attention to this explanation. Humans have 3 fires on their head and shoulders, the 3 flames, and ordinary ghosts cannot approach them. Furthermore, as far as I know, there is no type of malevolent spirit or demon that can cause a person to change gender. If such a thing truly existed, there would be no need for gender reassignment surgery in this world. But to reassure the woman, I still decided to conduct a test. I wheeled myself to the shrine room, took a handful of glutinous rice from my bag, returned to the courtyard, and told the woman to hold the glutinous rice in her mouth. Hold it, don't swallow. Spit it out only when I tell you to. I timed it for 7 minutes, then told the woman to spit the glutinous rice onto the stone table. The result, the originally pure white, glutinous rice grains had indeed turned black, black as if steeped in ink, and they emitted a foul, fishy smell. My initially indifferent expression changed. The yin energy was very strong. She had truly been cursed. The woman looked at the pitch-black glutinous rice, also crying out in fear. I took 2 bottles of Wahaha's calcium yogurt drink, one for myself, one for the woman, then chatted with her in detail. The woman said her name was Xiang Yu, 23 years old. Since the morning of the 14th, she had experienced a series of strange events. First, she received a phone message. Her bank card suddenly received a transfer of 10 million RMB. She thought someone had transferred money to the wrong account. So she went to the bank to check. The sender's information was blank. She asked the bank to reverse the transfer. But no matter how the staff tried, the money seemed to have taken root in her account and couldn't be transferred out. Finally, the bank staff could only conclude it was a system glitch, guessing the computer had a virus, and it would be dealt with later. Soon after, at noon, something even more horrifying happened at her company. Within 1 hour, 9 colleagues successively jumped from the building. After the police investigated the scene, they concluded that all 9 had committed suicide. But you felt a pang of guilt, because these 9 colleagues were all people she had conflicts with. Former employees who bullied her, a superior who manipulated her psychologically, and male colleagues who sexually harassed her. Even stranger that night, as she slept at home, just past midnight, she clearly heard the sound of galloping horses and gongs and drums coming from outside. Gongs and drums were clamorous. 10,000 horses galloped. The commotion was immense. But the strange thing was that her best friend, who lived with her, heard nothing. Xiang Yu, curious, opened the window and indeed saw a large crowd below the building. The leader was a sturdy young man with sword-like brows and phoenix eyes, wearing a gleaming silver chainmail armor, riding a pure black horse without a single stray hair. Beside the young man stopped a large red palanquin, adorned with red silk and 4 pom-poms, carried by 4 cheerful-looking attendants. Behind the young man were 18 large drums and 2 rows of horn players, blowing horns and beating drums. Following them were thousands of heavily armored soldiers. These people also wore armor and rode horses. Whose wedding procession is this in the middle of the night? And they're even dressed in ancient costumes. This scene is too grand. A ghostly wedding? Xiang Yu stood at the window, watching with admiration. The next moment, the silver-armored young man downstairs suddenly looked towards Xiang Yu, then rode his horse to her window. At that time, Xiang Yu's eyes widened. She was on the 24th floor. After all, the silver-armored young man gave her a pleasant smile. So, Xiang Yu's head spun, and she immediately felt hazy. Next, the silver-armored young man took her hand and led her out the window, descending to the red palanquin. Then he drew back the palanquin's curtain and told Chu Yu to sit inside. Chu Yu was like a puppet, offering no resistance at all, obediently complied. Then the wedding procession set off. The silver-armored young man led Chu Yu to a solemn ancient villa where a grand opera was being sung in the courtyard. After that, she was kept under house arrest by the silver-armored young man in that house for 7 days. During that time, the two became a couple, sharing an intimate ritual. In those 7 days, they engaged in intimacy 81 times. I myself am not that kind of casual person. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be a virgin at 23. But facing that man, I seemed unable to refuse. Instead, I was infatuated with him from the bottom of my heart. 7 days later, when I woke up, I found myself in my own bed at home, as if the previous experience had been a dream. But then I was horrified to discover that my body was not right. My breasts were slowly shrinking, not to mention something strange had grown in my underwear. I knew this must be related to what happened that night. I searched online. Some people said a wedding procession in the middle of the night is called a yin marriage. That young man was definitely not human. Chu Yu finished speaking, both agitated and terrified, trembling all over. I silently sighed, motioning for her to drink a sip of waha to calm down, but my heart felt no relief at all. This wasn't simply a yin marriage. By the way, do you remember what opera was being sung in that ancient villa that night? Chu Yu thought for a moment and said, I don't study opera. There were only 2 roles on stage, a great painted face and a woman. The woman committed suicide with a precious sword, and from the singing, it seemed to be Farewell, My Concubine. At this point, she hesitated again. I sternly said, if you've remembered something, say it quickly. Chu Yu shyly said that young man was probably also an opera fan, so engrossed in the play that he immersed himself in the role. When he did die with me, he kept calling me Yuji. The name Yuji, coupled with the opera Farewell, My Concubine, made the identity of the silver-armored young man almost clear. It turns out, it was the deity of Mount Bian, causing mischief. The deity of Mount Bian is named Xiang Yu, the leader of the uprising army at the end of the Qin dynasty, the Hegemon-King of Chu who burned the Yifang palace and destroyed the great Qin Empire. When he was alive, he was unmatched in bravery. Posterity often used 8 characters to describe him. Xiang Yu's divine courage, unparalleled through the ages. Later, Xiang Yu was defeated in the Chu Han contention against Liu Ban, and he committed suicide at Wujiang, accompanied by Yuji. After Xiang Yu's death, heaven and earth, moved by his unparalleled heroism, bestowed upon him the title of deity of Mount Bian. If it truly was Xiang Yu, then this matter was indeed a bit difficult to resolve. The Hegemon-King of Chu, when alive, possessed the greatest martial prowess in the world, and now, as a righteous deity, his combat power was imaginable. But there's something very strange. As a righteous deity under normal circumstances, he wouldn't act like an evil god, preying on mortal women, unless this Chu Yu possessed some special quality. And was her masculinization ultimately related to Xiang Yu, or to her own unique characteristic? Of course, this Xiang Yu is currently just my subjective speculation. What if it's an imposter evil entity? Xiang Yu, seeing my silence, was clearly a bit panicked. Grandma 9, what do I do now? I thought for a moment and asked her, do you dare to travel to the underworld? Xiang Yu was a little vague. What is traveling to the underworld? Traveling to the underworld, also known as crossing over in some places, is when I open a portal to the netherworld for you. You'll go find the 3 lives stone yourself, and there you can see your past, present and future lives. To solve your problem, it seems we must first clarify your past. Hearing this, Xiang Yu's face turned pale. Grandma 9, you want me to go to the underworld? Won't there be many ghosts? Indeed, there are many ghosts, but right now this is the only way. Will you do it or not? You decide for yourself. Xiang Yu's face was full of fear. Will I be eaten by ghosts? I immediately reassured her. Under normal circumstances, it won't be dangerous. I'll be watching over you. Xiang Yu was silent, seemingly struggling with her thoughts, but finally nodded. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try. If I really turn into a man later, I'd rather die. All right, follow me. I wheeled myself into the room, gathered some tools, then led Xiang Yu to my backyard. There was an old well there. I told her to push the well cover aside, revealing the entire old well. This well was called the Yin Traveling Well. It looked like an ordinary water well. The only difference was that the mouth of the Yin Traveling Well was small, just big enough to fit a head into, so a person couldn't fall in. I pulled out a 5 Emperor's coin from my pocket, told Xiang Yu to hold it under her tongue, then gently patted the top of her head and shoulders to diminish the 3 flames on her body. Next, you kneeled by the well, head down into the well opening. Remember, at no point are you to open your mouth and release the 5 Emperor's coin, or your soul will not be able to return. Xiang Yu followed each step, but due to fear, she was still trembling when she knelt down. She could only constantly reassure herself in her heart. Grandma 9 is watching over me. I'll be fine. At this moment, her head was down, submerged into the well's opening. All she could see was darkness, and all she could hear was her own breathing. After a while, a dripping sound began to emerge in her ears, like drops of water falling from above. As the dripping sound became faster and faster, she began to feel dizzy. Then strangely, she felt as if she was getting closer and closer to the bottom of the well. The well bottom, originally as black as ink due to the distance, gradually became clear enough to see faint ripples on the water. She felt a chill to the bone, as if someone was blowing cold air onto her head. Suddenly, many black hands reached up from the bottom of the well and grabbed her head. Some of these hands had exposed white bones, while others were made of rotting flesh. After grabbing Xiang Yu's head, they were like hungry wolves finally seeing fresh blood and flesh, clinging tightly and pulling her down with force. Xiang Yu clearly felt herself being pulled from her head, and then the dripping sound in her ears turned into the mournful wailing of ghosts and gods, along with whispers. The next moment, Xiang Yu was pulled into the water by those grotesque hands. She looked up, astonished to see a woman with disheveled hair hanging upside down from the mouth of the well. Her face was pale, her lips tightly shut as if dead. Outside the yin traveling well, I sat in my wheelchair, constantly monitoring Chu Yu's movements. With movement. When I saw her chest rise and fall, then slowly stop, I took a candle, pricked Chu, used right index finger with a needle, waited for blood to appear, squeezed a drop onto the candle, then lit the candle and placed it at the edge of the well. The index finger is connected to the heart, even linked to the heart. So the drop of blood squeezed from the index finger earlier was equivalent to heart blood. The candle, mixed with heart blood, was no longer just a mere candle, but represented Chu Yu's life. Hence, this candle was also called a life candle. Those in the profession can judge the current situation of someone traveling to the underworld by observing the flame of their life candle. A strong flame indicates safety, a dim flame indicates danger, and an extinguished flame indicates death. A dead person is like an extinguished lamp. In our underworld practices, this is a literal objectification, not a metaphor. At this moment, Chu Yu's life candle was burning quite strongly, so I could leisurely continue drinking my calcium, while pondering Xiang Yu's purpose in violating the principles of a righteous deity by coercing and favoring the mortal woman. Chu, you said she researched online that it was a yin marriage, but I could confirm that it was not. She was taken for 7 days, during which the other party seduced her into yin-yang union 81 times. One must know that these two numbers, 7 and 81, are not simple. 7, in Bagua, 8 trigrams, represents the yin number, and in folk beliefs, it also represents death and reincarnation. That's why the deceased have 7-day observances, from the first 7 to the 7, 49 days to achieve completion. As for 81, in Buddhism, it also represents completion. A Buddhist saying goes, 9 nines return to 1, achieving enlightenment. That's why Tang Sanzang had to undergo 81 tribulations to obtain the scriptures. One more or one less tribulation would not suffice. That's why, when I heard Chu Yu mention these two numbers, the first 2 words that popped into my head were ritual. So can we boldly guess that Xiang Yu is performing some kind of ritual on Chu Yu? Is her masculinization an inevitable outcome or a side effect of this ritual? Or in other words, is Chu Yu's masculinization a desired outcome for Xiang Yu? These answers will probably be explained once Chu Yu finishes viewing the 3 lives stone. Just then, the flame of Chu Yu's life candle suddenly became dim and grew dimmer, as if it would extinguish any second. I quickly grabbed a handful of paper money, used the life candle to light it, then tightly gripped one of Chu Yu's legs and yelled into the well's opening, "Jade is at work. Please make way and facilitate passage." The sound traveled down through the well's opening, but there was no echo. But the next moment, the flame of Chu Yu's life candle flared up strongly again. I leaned back in my wheelchair, silently observing the developments. After that, Chu Yu's life candle dimmed several more times. But under my careful watch, it ultimately did not extinguish. By this time, as hours passed, Chu Yu had been traveling in the underworld for nearly 3 hours, and the sun was setting. I knew it was time to call her back. The duration of yin traveling should not be too long. If prolonged, yin energy would invade the body. At best, a severe illness; at worst, damage to the soul. I placed the yin-yang copper scissors, a magical artifact, horizontally on my lap, then reached out and grabbed Chu Yu's hair, finally shouting loudly into the well's opening, "Chu Yu, if not now, when will you return?" After shouting 3 times, Chu Yu's body suddenly began to tremble violently. I pulled her chest up from the well opening, and along with her head exiting the well, dozens of black hands also emerged. These hands seemed unwilling to let her leave, wanting to pull her back into the well. With my other hand, I grabbed the copper scissors and directly made 2 cuts through those dozens of hands. The copper scissors were cast in the shape of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang, a potent weapon for severing souls and spirits. 1 cut for life, the second for death. The dozens of severed hands recoiled and retreated back into the well. I raised my hand and tapped Chu Yu's head and shoulders a few more times, rekindling the 3 flames on her body. A moment later, Chu Yu slowly opened her eyes, first spitting out the coin from her mouth, then telling me what she had seen down below. Chu Yu let out a long breath, clearly still frightened by her recent underworld journey. She calmed down a little before speaking. As soon as I went down, I saw a road, and on it were many people walking, men and women, old and young alike. I didn't know where to go to find the 3 live stone, so I asked these people, but they all said nothing. I could only follow them. I don't know how long I walked. My legs were exhausted. There was no place to rest on the road. I thought to myself, there are no inns on the Yellow Springs Road, so naturally, there's no place to rest. Then, suddenly, several fierce-looking figures carrying chains appeared and chased after me. I kept running, but in the end, they still caught me. I didn't know what to do when I heard Grandma Nine's voice saying, "Jade is at work. Please make way and facilitate passage." After that, those people released me. Those fierce figures were probably ghost constables, but I wasn't interested in those details, so I cut her off. No need for these trivial details. Did you see the 3 live stone? Shh, you nodded. I saw the 3 live stone. It's a gigantic white rock, right by the banks of the River of Oblivion and the Bridge of Helplessness. I hummed. The 3 lives stone is one of the treasures of the underworld. Standing before it, you can see your past, present, and future lives. Tell me what you saw. Chu Yu took a deep breath, her voice filled with excitement and trembling. I saw the Chu-Han contention, saw Hegemon-King Xiang Yu charge to his death, invincible among the enemy, and also saw him besieged and defeated. His heroic lament, "My strength uprooted mountains, my spirit dominated the world. But times are against me, and my steed won't advance. When I won't advance, what can I do? Yuji! Yuji! How can I help you?" Chu Yu could no longer control her tears as she spoke. He was such an arrogant, unyielding person, with such soaring spirit, and now he was surrounded on all sides. I couldn't bear to see his struggling appearance, so I drew my sword and committed suicide. It turns out farewell, my concubine truly existed, and I was that Yuji. The silver-armored young man who kidnapped me looked exactly like Xiang Yu. He must be Xiang Yu's ghost. I teased. That's Xiang Yu's soul, no doubt, but not a ghost. Your Hegemon King, after death, was conferred the title of deity of Mount Bian. So he had been deified. Chu, you genuinely felt happy for Xiang Yu. Indeed. So, people say judging a hero by success or failure isn't entirely accurate. Heavenly Tao and human hearts will also have their public judgment. I told Chu Yu to seal the yin traveling well, led her back to the front courtyard, then took old cinnabar and stuffed it into her ears. Nose, mouth, and tongue, all 7 orifices, to help stabilize her soul and prevent residual effects like the loss of her 3 souls after yin traveling. After stabilizing her soul, I told Chu Yu that the cause was clear. Next, we would directly confront the deity of Mount Bian, ask his intentions, and then her masculinization problem would also find its root cause for resolution. Because whoever ties the knot must untie it. Everything now clearly pointed towards Xiang Yu. Chu Yu naturally had no objections to this, but she hesitated for a moment and finally told me one more thing. Ranma 9, when I saw my past life, before the 3 lives stone, I also saw a scene. My corpse was dug up by a middle-aged man, and then that man said something to a Daoist priest named Zifang. Taoist Zifang. But ultimately nodded. Then they found a secret chamber and wrapped my corpse in yellow cloth. After that, I heard your voice, felt my body become light, as if flying up. And then I woke up. Unexpectedly, things became even more. I guessed that this Taoist priest named Zifang was probably Zhang Liang, one of the 3 heroes of the early Han dynasty, because Zhang Liang's courtesy name was Zifang. In fact, few people know that Zhang Liang was proficient in Daoist arts. After the founding of the Great Han, he traveled all over the world. Later, he achieved immortality and became the Grand Mystic Youth, beside the Grand Pure Lord. During the Northern Song dynasty, he was further conferred the title of True Man Lingxiu, and his 8th generation grandson was the famous celestial master Zhang Daolin. As for the middle-aged man, there are currently no clues. I hoped that Zhang Liang and this middle-aged man were not too involved in Chu Yu's matter. Otherwise, things would get complicated. But we still had to meet Xiang Yu first, and then figure things out. Mount Bian is located in Huzhou, Zhejiang, towering on the southern shore of Taihu Lake. It was 600 miles from where we were, but I had a rule. I couldn't walk, couldn't ride in a car. I could only travel by palanquin. If the palanquin traveled to Mount Bian, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. At Chu Yu's rate of transformation, I feared that in 10 days, her breasts would have completely vanished, and her Adam's apple and beard would have grown, at which point she would have fully transformed into a man. Chu, you heard this outcome and was so scared, she almost cried. Out of necessity, I had to go to the wilderness and randomly capture 5 wandering ghosts, using the 5 ghosts carrying palanquin spell. The 5 ghosts carrying palanquin can travel 1,000 miles a day, almost as fast as a train. Of course, emperors don't let their soldiers starve, and the king of hell doesn't let ghosts starve. So, before setting off, I told Chu you to buy 500 yuan worth of Joss paper money and burn it on the spot for these 5 ghosts. Chu, you pushed me and my wheelchair into the black palanquin inside the house. Then 2 ghosts were in front, 2 in the back, and 1 ghost went ahead to clear the way. Chu, you couldn't sit in this black palanquin because the 6 paths of reincarnation were painted all around it. Top, bottom, front, and back. Once it's carried, the surrounding 6 paths of reincarnation will cycle. An insufficiently cultivated person who sits in it might easily turn into a pig when they come out. Therefore, I casually threw a hand-sized paper horse to the ground. The paper horse touched the ground, grew with the wind, and became the size of a real horse. I told Chu Yu to ride it. To avoid scaring others, I chose to depart after midnight that day. The result was that by the next morning, we had arrived at the foot of Mount Bian. I wheeled myself out of the palanquin, took 3 sticks of golden incense from my satchel, and waved them in the air. The golden incense sticks lit automatically. I held the golden incense over my head, bowed to the 4 directions, then casually stuck it into a rock at my feet, and facing the majestic 100-meter-tall mountain before me, I loudly proclaimed, "Jade, Jade." Under the king of hell's palace and the city god comes to pay respect to the mountain. Deity of Mount Bian, please reveal yourself for a meeting. After shouting, I told you to hide behind the palanquin first. The result was that as soon as she was hidden, the thunderous sound of hooves came from the mountain ahead, and then a cavalry of over 1,000 swept towards us. The leader wore silver armor, his demeanor heroic, with sword-like brows and phoenix eyes, looking directly at me, exuding unparalleled charisma. "Jade, I know you, but you belong to the Guanyin lineage, while I am a righteous deity of the Yang world. What brings you to me?" I smiled. "This humble maiden has come to deliver a wife to the Hegemon-King." I signaled for Chu Yu to step out from behind the palanquin. The moment Xiang Yu saw Chu Yu, his expression drastically changed. "Yuji, quickly avoid." Just as Chu Yu was about to speak, she suddenly felt her entire body turn cold. Her 3 treasures, essence, energy, spirit, transformed into a stream of white mist, continuously flowing towards Xiang Yu's door. Chu Yu, utterly withered, collapsed to the ground like a corpse having its vital essence drained. I immediately panicked, quickly bent down, lifted Chu Yu, and threw her into my 6 paths of reincarnation palanquin. This palanquin possessed the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was a magical artifact itself. So, as soon as Chu Yu entered the palanquin, the connection of the 3 treasures, essence, energy, spirit, between her and Xiang Yu was automatically severed. The palanquin was not being carried at this time, so there was no need to worry about Chu Yu turning into a pig when she came out. After settling Chu Yu, I turned and stared coldly at Xiang Yu. Well, deity of Mount Bian, to dare use such dark arts to drain others' 3 treasures and destroy their fundamental essence. Xiang Yu glared back at me, not only seeing no fault in himself, but also turning the blame. "Jade, you almost ruined my great plan. Take her away immediately, or today I will show no one any respect, and I will certainly make you pay." His attitude directly angered me. you scoundrel. Your deity, falsely renowned in historical records, is so vile. Today this Grandma Nine will revitalize the divine path and abolish your deity status. Xiang Yu shook his sky dragon city breaker halberd in hand, his face arrogant. Such big words, wanting to slay a deity. Then let this deity test your might. With that, he waved his hand behind him, signaling his subordinates not to interfere. Then, his immense divine power directly suppressed. I was almost completely suppressed, unable to move. Xiang Yu then uttered another phrase. My strength uprooted mountains, my spirit dominated the world, and with a casual flick of his hand, the main peak of Mount Bian lifted from the ground and flew towards me. Truly, the Hegemon-King of Chu, with strength that uprooted mountains and spirit that dominated the world. This fellow is a righteous deity. The spells I usually use to exorcise ghosts and suppress evil were fundamentally ineffective against him. So I could only use a deity summoning incantation. Xiang Yu was a figure from the late Qin dynasty, undoubtedly much earlier than my brothers Zhongkuei, Kuiyu, and the black and white impermanence. His divine power and cultivation were naturally more profound than theirs, so I had to summon a great deity even earlier than Xiang Yu. I quickly used the copper scissors to cut my index finger, then dabbed it on my forehead. I clasped my palms together, placed them at my dantian, and began chanting the deity summoning incantation. 3 pure ones decree. Grand Supreme 3 Chi, Golden Gyro divine arrows, spiritual energy moves, and unfolds the decree. Respectfully invoking the responsive immortal maiden, Big Xiao, Lady Big Xiao, to aid me in slaying this deity. As soon as the deity summoning incantation ended, thunder and lightning suddenly erupted around Mount Bian. Only a figure, welcomed by the 9 thunders, could be seen. This person had a round face and phoenix eyes, an arrogant expression, dressed in a nun's robe and feather attire, wearing 5-colored shoes and a golden crown with a golden pinnacle. Her aura was sky high. It was naturally Lady Big Xiao, the youngest of the 3 immortal maidens of the responsive immortal maidens. This deity had achieved godhood at the end of the Shang dynasty, more than 1,000 years before Xiang Yu. Moreover, her personality was arrogant and lawless, defying all rules. Years ago, during the battle of 9 Bend Yellow River, she even dared to draw her sword against the sage Yuan Shi Tiansun. Lady Big Xiao's phoenix eyes swept across the entire scene. Then she stared at me with a charming smile. This little girl is indeed also lawless. The previous times you invoked my eldest and second sisters, it was only to slay demons. This time, you've invoked me to slay a deity. Don't you know this deity of Mount Bian is also a righteous god appointed by the heavenly court? The heavenly court has always forbidden deities from fighting amongst themselves. Aren't you bringing trouble upon me? Although her tone was reproachful, I could tell she wasn't truly angry. I suddenly remembered what Lady Qiong Xiao had said last time and probed. A niece in trouble, naturally, has to seek out her aunt. If auntie doesn't help her niece, I'll go complain to my father. Lady Big Xiao heard this and was astonished. You already know your identity, my eldest brother. This little girl dares to trick me. My heart pounded. Lady Big Xiao didn't deny the auntie address, and she even mentioned her eldest brother. So, Was I truly related to that golden dragon? As you wish, true, Lord of the Dragon Tiger Mystic Altar? Just as I was about to confirm, Lady Bixiao glared at me. This little girl can't be allowed to speak anymore. With that, she directly flew and entered my body. The next moment, I was possessed by Lady Bixiao, and my entire being exuded an overwhelming aura. I slapped the armrest of my wheelchair forcefully and stood up. Little mountain deity, though this immortal maiden cannot kill you, beating you up to vent my niece's anger is perfectly fine. With that, she raised her hand to the sky and called. From the clouds, 2 magical artifacts descended into her hands, the primordial golden bucket and the golden Jiao scissors. Xiang Yu felt the terrifying killing intent emanating from the primordial golden bucket and the golden Jiao scissors, and he was completely stunned. He naturally knew the formidable reputation of the 3 immortal maidens. He knew he was certainly no match. But his arrogant personality wouldn't allow him to surrender without a fight. So he tightened his grip on the Sky Dragon Citybreaker halberd, then patted the black steed he was riding, and charged towards Lady Bixiao. The two only exchanged 2 blows, and Xiang Yu had already fallen to the ground. Lady Bixiao frowned, looked at Xiang Yu, and exclaimed, "No more fighting. Your primordial spirit is very weak, and your divine essence is only half. Fighting is pointless." With that, she glanced at my palanquin, then smiled. "So that's it. This immortal maiden understands now. You are truly willing, a peerless general for 1,000 generations, yet so sentimental and devoted to a woman." After saying this, Lady Bixiao directly exited my body and vanished with the 5 colored clouds, leaving behind only an enigmatic warning. Don't truly bully my niece, or this immortal maiden won't care about any heavenly court rules. After all, during the investiture of the Gods' War back then, quite a few immortals were cut in 2 by my golden Jiao scissors. Lady Bixiao seemed to be fleeing just now, moving swiftly and neatly. I had no choice but to sit back in my wheelchair. But her words also made me realize something. Perhaps I had misunderstood Xiang Yu. So, you weren't draining Chu Yu's 3 treasures, but rather bestowing half of your divine essence upon her. Xiang Yu now looked frail. He gave a bitter laugh. "Jade, you must also know that Chu Yu is the reincarnation of Yu Ji. How could I harm her?" Through Xiang Yu's account, I finally pieced together the full story. It turns out Chu Yu had died long ago. She was always bullied at work, and that day she returned home with morbid thoughts and committed suicide. The strange things she said she experienced the day before the Hungry Ghost Festival. In reality, the one with problems was herself. The bank account, suddenly having 10 million RMB, was the Joss paper money her family burned for her after her death. She said that at noon, 9 colleagues at the company jumped from the building. In reality, these colleagues were all pushed down by her. It was just that she was a ghost at the time, so the police naturally couldn't find traces of murder and could only conclude it was suicide. A ghost killing a person in the underworld is a great crime, and would lead to punishment in the 18 layers of hell, 100 years per life. So, if Chu Yu went to the underworld, she would definitely have to suffer 900 years in the 18 layers of hell. Xiang Yu, knew that Chu Yu was the reincarnation of Yuji, and didn't want her to die and suffer in hell. So he paid the price of harming himself, separating half of his divine essence, and then, through yin-yang union, transferred it into Chu Yu's body 81 times. Additionally, the two had to spend 7 days together. 7 days later, the two parted ways. 49 days later, the divine essence within Chu Yu's body would automatically absorb and refine. Thus, she would also become one of the mountain deities of Mount Beyond. The laws of the underworld would naturally not be able to control her. But before the full 49 days, the divine essence in Chu Yu's body would not yet be fully solidified. If she met Xiang Yu, the original owner of the divine essence in Chu Yu's body would automatically return to Xiang Yu. This was precisely why Xiang Yu immediately became enraged upon seeing Chu Yu, and precisely because of the divine essence's protection. I didn't immediately discover that Chu Yu was already dead. This ritual is probably not allowed by the heavenly court, right? After all, if successful, it creates a new deity without needing an official conferment. If every deity followed suit, wouldn't the heavenly court be thrown into chaos? Xiang Yu heard this and again looked unconcerned. Naturally, it's not allowed. Later, the heavenly court might abolish my divine title, making me return to being a wild ghost entering reincarnation. Because there can only be one deity of Mount B. As for every deity following suit, that's worrying too far ahead. I'm afraid not many deities would follow. At this point, Xiang Yu's entire body unconsciously trembled. I immediately understood his meaning. Is dividing the divine essence very painful? Xiang Yu's face was pale. He gave a dry laugh. The pain of being gnawed by 1,000 knives, 10,000 swords, and countless worms is not even a fraction of it. My goodness, how painful must that be? Just thinking about it sent shivers down my spine. Here, everything was temporarily concluded. Next was to wait for Chu Yu to finish absorbing the divine essence in her body, awaken, and then succeed as the deity of Mount Beyond. Xiang Yu invited us to temporarily stay at the foot of Mount Bayan, by the shore of Taihu Lake. I thought Chu Yu's masculinization was an inevitable result, or a side effect of that god-making ritual, so I didn't ask Xiang Yu about it. 1 month later, exactly 49 days had passed since Xiang Yu kidnapped Chu Yu. When I led Chu Yu out of the dilapidated house at the foot of the mountain, Xiang Yu, who had been waiting for a long time, was stunned the moment he saw Chu Yu. Liu Gi, why is it you? I was a bit dumbfounded. Why did Xiang Yu think Chu Yu was Liu Bang? At this moment, Chu Yu had indeed completely masculinized. Not only had her breasts disappeared, but she also had an Adam's apple and stubble, and even her appearance had greatly changed, completely different from the original Chu. If I hadn't been with her every day, witnessing her transformation, anyone would think she was a different person. I tried to explain to Xiang Yu, this is Chu Yu. The side effect of your god-making ritual is to change the gender of the subject. You must know this, right? Xiang Yu, however, shook his head with a serious expression. The ritual fundamentally has no such effect. Liu Gi, don't pretend to be mute. I want to hear you speak. Liu Bang looked at Xiang Yu, his eyes slightly red. Xiang Yu, I never thought that after more than 1,000 years, you would still recognize me immediately. I am very happy. All those years ago, you and I met under your uncle, Shang Liang. We fought Zhang Han together, killed Li Yu. Although our ages were different, we were like brothers. Later, each of us led our own armies, our fates not our own. At the Hong Gate banquet, people thought Xiang Bo saved me, but I knew you had shown mercy. Not wanting to kill me, you merely went with the flow. At the Battle of Gaxia, I didn't want to kill you, but you committed suicide at Wujiang, branding me with the crime of injustice. You and I didn't even get to meet one last time. That year, after the Battle of Gaxia, I sent people to find Yuji's corpse, then ordered Zifang to use Taoist magic to seal Yuji's 3 souls within her body. Hearing this, I immediately recognized the second past life, Xin Chu, you had seen at the 3 Live Stone. It turned out that the middle-aged man was Lu Bang. That Taoist priest was Zhang Liang, dark trying. This was just as I had guessed earlier. I also knew a little about soul-sealing arts, but as far as I knew, the soul-sealing art could at most last 7 years. After 7 years, the seal would expire. Liu Bang's voice in my ear continued. After that, I founded the Great Han Dynasty, but I always felt guilty towards you, only regretting that I couldn't face you to say goodbye. I'm sorry. 7 years later, I fell gravely ill. On my deathbed, I pleaded with Zifang. Zifang told me he calculated that you and Yuji still had an unfinished destiny. If I agreed, he would use Taoist magic, borrowing the power of the Big Dipper, to hide my 3 souls within Yuji's 3 souls. When you and Yuji reunited, you and I would also reunite. Zifang indeed didn't deceive me. I just never expected it to take 1,000 years. Xiang Yu, I Liu Bang, have wronged you. You probably don't want to see me again. From now on, you and I will meet no more. After Liu Bang finished these words, he seemed to have no more attachments. He looked at Xiang Yu once, transformed into a ray of light, and headed towards the underworld for reincarnation. As Liu Bang's soul disappeared, Chu Yu's masculinized features also vanished instantly, and she regained her gentle and beautiful appearance as a woman. It turned out that the entire origin was Liu Bang. He had been hiding within Yuji's soul. Thus, Chu Yu had 1 body, 2 souls, and from that, 1 body, 2 genders, exhibiting male sexual characteristics. Xiang Yu sighed. Liu Bang and I were both played by fate. I know Liu Bang and Xiang Yu seemed to have a deep unresolved karma. Did Liu Bang truly die of illness 7 years after ascending the throne? Was there a possibility that he knew Yuji's soul seal was about to expire, and so he ended his own life? Historical records state that Emperor Jiaozu of Han, Liu Bang, suddenly fell ill in the 7th year of his reign. The emperor refused treatment, telling the imperial physician, I am but a commoner who seized the empire with a 3-foot sword. Is this not destiny? No need for further treatment. Here, take 50 catties of gold and go. Xiang Yu, having learned the full story, threatened to destroy her own soul, telling Xiang Yu to withdraw the half-divine essence from her, and then proactively went to the underworld to seek punishment. According to her, I, Xiang Yu, whether in my past life or this life, am not a woman who implicates her man. Under my arrangement, my 2 brothers, Zhong Kui and Kui, accepted. Thus, they sentenced her to help Lady Meng boil soup at the Bridge of Helplessness for 100 years as punishment. No.